Hi, let's talk about the stories that we tell ourselves, the stories that play on in our minds. You may not even be aware of this, but it's very likely that your life is going through patterns that are set by the stories that you very unconsciously are telling yourself. When we go to see a movie, we think that it is one continuous, unbroken stream. But you and I both know that it isn't true, that really a movie is a set of, what do they call them? Stills, frames. It's a set of stills or frames that are moving and merging one into the other. And therefore, it seems as though it's a continuous flow. Do you know that our lives are very much like that movie? When we experience something, it might be the smallest event, it might be a very large traumatic event. But when we experience something, it has one of two effects. Our brain, which is our little computer, experiences the event, the words, the tones, the energies that you may actually consciously not even become aware of, but the brain is picking it up. And all of this is fed into this computer. And it runs through the database of all the stories that are already present. And then it might be that you say, you know what, this reminds me of a time when I was. So it can be that the same story is, in a sense, being narrated, even though the event is a completely different one. Or it might be that there is no database to fall back upon and a new story is created. For example, if your home is burglarized, there may be no old story to base this experience upon. The computer of your brain immediately realizes this and instantly writes another story, which is based upon this event. And that story, from that moment on, shall trigger different reactions and responses from you throughout your life, till, of course, you eliminate that story. The truth is, there is none amongst us who does not have a story. In fact, this is exactly the goal of all the sages and the mystics, to live in a state of consciousness where there is absolutely no story. Stories come from our ego spaces. The ego is ruled by and also rules our senses, our thoughts, our feelings and emotions. And the events that we experience, whether as a 3-year-old or a 13-year-old or a 33-year-old, these events are first taken in by our senses. What is taken in by our senses is then processed, and the brain releases all those beliefs, thoughts, feelings, and emotions that align with the experience of your senses. And this is exactly what a story is. As we experience more and more of the same, the story deepens, and more perspectives and angles of the story are written by the inner script writer. And as the story deepens, the story creates patterns in our lives. So if that event, when your house was burglarized, created in you a very deep story of distrust, overcautiousness, and the need to feel safe and to rely on others for your safety, you shall rewrite that story, and you shall have these patterns of distrust, of betrayal, of insecurity, feeling unsafe that come into your life. And you may not even know why you are attracting these experiences to you, but you know that there is a pattern. As soon as you recognize a pattern, please remember, you have to go within and become aware of the stories that are creating those patterns. And then you have to learn how to eliminate those stories. And don't just eliminate. Nothing can be a vacuum inside. The energy of those stories have to be replaced by fresh, new, positive energies. Energies that you very consciously implant within you. Energies that come from a place of authenticity. Because you see, a story eventually is exactly that. It is a story. You and I know as adults that there may be certain elements of truth in a story, but by its very definition, a story is something that we weave out of our imagination. And we are doing the same thing with the stories that are woven by and into our subconscious and unconscious. To live a life where there are healthy patterns, positive patterns, enriching patterns, we must write stories that are authentic, that come from the true space of spirit that we are. And then the joy is that you cannot then use the word stories for them, because they are not stories anymore. They are the truth. The truth is replacing the stories. The authenticity is replacing the stories. So many times, I'm sure you have started on a ritual of affirmations. For example, I am source, I am divine consciousness, I am love, I am light. And the happiness that you get from this is very short-lived. Somehow it just does not seem to translate over an extended period of time into your daily life. Why? Why does this happen? We know that those affirmative statements are so true. I am source. I am consciousness. I am the God self. I am love. I am light. Then why do they not translate into daily living? The problem lies with the stories. As you've grown up, there have been so many events in your life. Many of the events you've really forgotten. But the inner being, the inner child, remembers everything. And all of this goes into that database of the computer. And other events that you experience, as I said earlier, are run through this database, and old stories are either reaffirmed and become stronger and deeper, or new ones are created. And the saddest part of it is that you and I are completely unaware that this is taking place. What we are aware of is that however hard we are trying to make changes in our lives, our efforts are not being rewarded enough. The changes may seem minimal. In order to fill that empty space within you, in order to be completely balanced between the material side of you, the side that is directed by ego, and the spiritual side of you, the side that is guided, directed, embraced by the divine self that you are, to reach that space of complete balance, the stories have to be eliminated one by one. When you die, your stories die with you. The deep impact of events upon your energy space continues on and comes with you into another incarnation. But a large number, most of the stories die with you. So you're going to eliminate these stories in any case. Would it just not be wonderful if you could consciously eliminate these stories while you are alive? However old you are just now is immaterial. You don't know how long you still have to live, how many more years. But whether that's a short time or a long one, wouldn't you like to live that life on your terms? Without those stories creating unpleasant patterns in your life, without those stories ensuring that your life is not as fulfilling as it can be. You have the right to live a completely fulfilled life. But only you can live that, and only you can ensure that it is a fulfilling life. You have to take on this responsibility of recognizing the stories, eliminating them, and replacing them with truth and authenticity. Now you might wonder what kind of stories we tell ourselves. Well, stories like, I am so fat that no one will love me. I am differently abled, and I shall always be judged by the world as unattractive. I am not strong enough to live on my own terms. Others are far better than I am. I haven't done anything that I can really call successful. So I don't deserve the good things in life. I have been such a horrible person in my youth that I must spend the rest of my life paying retribution for all my sins. I am suffering because I have not done good deeds. I shall never have the fortune that others have because I'm just not born lucky. These are stories we tell ourselves, these and so many more. And they become entrenched energy pathways in our energy matrix. And whatever energy flows to us, it might flow from the highest of realms while we are meditating. But even those energies have to run through those entrenched pathways. And however potent that energy is that you have connected to, when it passes those entrenched pathways of the stories we tell ourselves, the potency of those energies that you might have connected to is lost. And yes, your life shall change because there is an inflow of high frequency energies. But that change is minimal, marginal, not the kind of change and transformation it could have been if the energies flowed through a pathway that had no stories or very few stories. Recognizing and eliminating stories is, for me, a lifelong event. I've been doing this for years, and each new trigger is an eye-opener for me, telling me that there is yet another story that I have to eliminate and replace with authenticity, with divine self energy. So if you would like to take this further, I have a 2-part recorded workshop. Why don't you look at the link below? Read the details of this workshop. I have endeavored to make it as simple as possible so that you can, through the help of the recordings, work upon yourself. And if I can be of any help, please message me, put it down in the comments below, and I shall revert to you. I urge you to begin this journey. Do not allow any more of your life to be influenced, impacted by those stories. They are not who you are. These are stories that you have gathered ever since you were born, when you were able to take in experiences through your senses. And this process hasn't stopped. And this process shall not stop. You and I shall continue taking experiences in through our senses. But we have to ensure that we do not have a database of stories created by negative triggers. So join me and let's live life to our fullest potential. Big hug.